So, you want to be a Death Knight, right? And you've discovered very, very quickly the pitfalls of Death Knight, which is currently a little bit more strenuous right now as we are in the pre patch for Wrath of the Lich King. You've got about a week left, and you're really trying to maximize the damage, right? That your class can bring. Or, in the other ways, maybe you're looking to tank a little, or maybe just due to the pure versatility that is allowed by the Death Knight class. You've wanted to become a tanky, battle hardened PvP master. Well, welcome to SpyPie Gaming TV. And today I'm going to be showing you a couple builds that are working for right now. Right now, meaning the pre patch for Wrath of the Lich King, where we still have 10 talent points missing, as well as a host of abilities. We are currently playing a class that is not designed for TBC. So, we have to make some adaptations. Now, the big adaptations we're going to be seeing going forward is mainly focusing on raw stat, right? So listen, guys, you don't have tier sets out there, okay? We just don't. The only thing you're going to get right now is brutal gladiator gear and a couple pieces that are trash in every raid. Unless you're me and you get Gorehowl on your first attempt of Karazhan. Now, when it comes to it, really, you're just not going to find good gear. You're not going to find good gear out there unless you're willing to do the PvP grind. And even then, it's just not going to be spec specific, right? So, currently, where are we going to find all of our, well, stats? We're going to find them in our blood, frost, and unholy tree. And these three specs are phenomenal for really boosting the versatility of your spec. So, without further ado, let's get right into the video. Now, for the first thing I'm going to go ahead and recommend, okay, is for people who are leveling currently, right? If you are currently leveling or just hit level 70, this is the spec that you will need to really boost forward amongst the crowd, right? Once you get more gear, even though we don't have much, once you get more gear coming in, you'll definitely see a boost in damage. But this right now is your sustain. This is your I need to get through content. I don't have anything but this piece of cloth between me and the boss. And really, like, I just want to survive more than anything, but I'd still like to do some good damage, right? And I'd like to be helpful for my team, as well as providing just a great source of, all around utility, which the Death Knight comes in with strides. Now, I'm going to say up front that the one that I recommend for leveling does include a pet. However, I'm going to give an alternative after this to no pets. So stick around if you're not quite sure about how you feel about a pet because this video here is going to be dedicated to like a bunch of different builds that are currently working that I've tested on the servers, live servers, and that I have come across really just performing I would say above optimal for current, right nows. Really, the big thing you're going to notice is that none of these specs that I'm going to be showing you will end up taking either Dancing Rune Weapon, Howling Blast, or Summon Gargoyle. As well as, and I know this is going to sound like heresy, but you're not going to get Scourge Strike, you're not going to get Frost Strike, and you're definitely not going to get Heart Strike. These abilities here are really the bread and butter that we're going to get into when we reach Wrath. But for right now, we need raw stat. And the raw stat, well, it comes from mixing and matching. So, firstly, I would recommend putting your points directly into Frost. So improved icy touch is going to do a 5%, 10%, and then a 15% increased damage on your frost fever, as well as reducing the melee and ranged attack speed by 6% on the target. So, really, this is your damage over time. You're going to be throwing this up no matter what spec you are. Icy Touch is phenomenal, and it really does its job just well. It's a functional dot, and there's not much else to go off on that. But you want to go ahead and improve it, and then next in line, we're going to go ahead and get an extra 30 runic power from Runic Power Mastery. Now, from here, this is where things get a little bit complicated, but it's not going to be too complicated, where we're going to get Black Ice, and it's going to be a 10% increased damage to our Frost and Shadow damage. Remember that Shadow damage, guys, because this does dip into Unholy here in just a moment. So, we're going to be doing this, and then from there, we need Annihilation. Now, Annihilation increases the critical strike chance of your melee special abilities by 3%. And in addition, there is a 100% chance that when you obliterate, you will not consume your diseases that you have on the target. For anyone who's not in the know, whenever you use obliterate, it's going to cleanse the target of your damage over time effects, and we do not want that because we actually plan to use obliterate to further damage, like, and really just massacre. Um, Next in line, we're going to get Icy Talons. Now, Icy Talons, we will be leeching heat from our victims. This right here, it is a 20% increase to your net. So, victims that you put your Frost Fever on, what's going to happen here is when their melee attack speed is reduced, yours will be increased by 20% for 20 seconds. That is awesome because guess what, guys? Improved Icy Touch does that for you. So you put Icy Touch up, you get 20% extra attack speed haste. That is honestly the best bargain out of everything in here. That is simply put one of the most massive upgrades that you're going to see out of all of this. Now, aside from that, one other big upgrade is Killing Machine. And at level 5, your melee attacks will have a chance, okay, a chance to make your next Icy Touch, Howling Blast, Frost Strike, or just Frost Strike critically strikes. So that is phenomenal. It's going to help out a lot with damage. Um, I think that this right here is probably going to proc a lot more than a lot of people think. It says that it has a chance, but I've seen it up constantly. So really, just play as you normally would. Get Killing Machine, throw your Icy Touch out, and then when you throw your Icy Touch out, guess what? 20% increased attack speed for you. Now, next in line for what we can pick here. Now you can see we only need 2 points actually left in this tree to get improved Icy Talons, which is the major big thing here. So I'm going to go ahead and give a couple recommendations, but I'm going to take the one that I specifically prefer putting points into. Now, Chains of Ice and Howling Blast, as well as Icy Touch, generate a 5 more runic power. That is a great choice if you are having any issues with runic power generation. I'm a Blood Elf, so I don't really need this specifically. However, if you're like me and you also really, really do keep on top of those interrupts, this is a great one too. Endless Winter, as well as, like we said, this is going into maximizing your raw stat. This is a strength increase by 4%, and Mind Freeze, your interrupt, no longer costs any runic power. That is massive. Massive. Because I have been in many situations, even as a blood elf, right? Um where I just was not able to get an interrupt because I had spent all my runic power on my burst. So, From there, we're going to go ahead and jump into improved icy talons. This is increasing the melee haste of all party and raid members within 100 yards. Okay, just take a second on that. By 20%, and yours by an additional 5%. Now, if you're mathing this out, guys, you can definitely tell that this is getting a little bit silly. That is 20%, and then another 20% melee haste. And if you start to think about it, you're like, that's a little bit weird. That is 45%, okay? Extra increased attack speed, and if whenever you hit level 70, if you decide to run with Unholy Presence, which you can as Pure Frost or Blood or whatever, you will get an extra 15% melee haste on top. So if you're really wanting to push melee attack speed, I mean, you can go with a really fast pole arm or one-handers and really just boost the hell out of your attack speed. I mean, talking like Razor Ice will be on the target before you can even blink. So, I recommend this. I do like to also, for an honorable mention, this is the one that I normally pick, is Glacier Rot. Diseased enemies take, which is a 14, and then 20% more damage from your Icy Touch, Howling Blast, and Frost Strike. Now, the main difference you're going to see here is if you plan to be using Plague Strike first, but I do like to pull with Icy Touch. And since I like to pull with Icy Touch, I don't like Glacier Rot as much. I see a bigger benefit from going with Endless Winter just to get down to improved Icy Talons, and overall it kind of maths out just a little bit better. We're trying to eke out tiny little numbers right now, guys, because we don't have gear sets. So, what's next on the line? Well, we have 45 points left. And the first thing is Vicious Strikes. Now, this increases the critical strike chance by 6%, and critical strike damage bonus by 30% of Plague Strike and Scourge Strike. Now, Plague Strike is going to be the one you're going to be using the most because we don't get Scourge Strike. So, this is really your big spender. Um, why not boost the damage of your damage over time ability? Why not? Really, that's the big takeaway from it all. I also recommend Virulence. This is a 3% increased chance to hit with your spells, and your spells have a 30% chance to not be able to be cured. So in PvP situations, this can become a real nightmare. Um, from here, the main big thing I'm going to recommend, like I said, this is a pet build, is that we're going to go Ravenous Stat. That's going to increase our total strength by 3%. That's another massive big gain in the strength department. But the contribution our ghouls get from our strength and stamina, which is our health pool, is 60% more. That is ridiculous. All right. We're talking like, essentially perma pets are going to happen, and they're going to have a ton of just massive damage, and they're not going to die. It's going to be a whole lot of silly stuff. Now, next on the line, you're really going to want to come over here and grab Epidemic. Epidemic's going to increase the duration of your Blood Plague and Frost Strike. You are a dot build as a Death Knight. No matter where you're coming at in the Death Knight trees, you're gonna have dots up. So why not just make it easier on yourself and make the dots a little bit longer? So you could do that, as well as I would recommend Morbidity if you plan to be a little more tanky. Death and Decay is not something you're going to be throwing down a lot, especially if you're like in a raid or whatever as a DPS, because it pulls a whole lot of threat, but it also increases the damage of Death Coil, which we will be boosting in its own right. So there is some flexibility here if you would prefer this over Epidemic. Really, that's your choice to make, but I think Epidemic pulls ahead just a slight bit. Now, from there, we're going to get Outbreak, which will increase the damage done of our Plague Strike by 30% and Scourge Strike by 20%. Now, really, like I said, Scourge Strike we don't have, but a 30% extra damage on Plague Strike coupled with this here, Vicious Death, really, honestly, it's ridiculous that we're even allowed to do this. So, next in line is I recommend grabbing Corpse Explosion just because it's kind of like free damage. But like I said, I'm a blood elf, so I spend runic power like it's nothing. All right. Uh, the big main one here is Necrosis. Okay. At 5 points, you're gonna have an additional 20% shadow damage, which is absolutely king on your auto attacks. Now, I mean, that's a 20% bonus for your auto attack damage, which is what you're going to be doing a lot of the time anyway. It's something you're going to be doing during literally everything else you do. So why not go ahead and get a little bit more shadow damage on top? Not a lot of things have shadow resistance, so you can really make a lot out of that. Now, from there, I'm going to go ahead and say Night of the Dead. Now, this right here reduces the cooldown of your Raise Dead and reduces the cooldown of Army the Dead, and also reduces the damage your pet takes from creature area of effect attacks. Now, in PvP, this is not going to matter. In PvE, this isn't going to matter, that last part specifically, but this is all here just so that we can get down just a little bit farther, pick up Unholy Blight. Unholy Blight's going to increase our Death Coil's damage by, first, whenever we sling it at an enemy, we are then going to create a vile swarm of unholy insects, taking 10% of the damage done by Death Coil over 10 seconds. Now, this thing here is a damage over time that is also a damage over time area of effect. So, really, this thing is just massive gains, right? This is a big boost in the right direction. This is your AoE dot now. Preventing any diseases on the victim from being dispelled as well is honestly a little bit screwed up. So, yeah, make sure you're maximizing where you're putting your talents here. Now, on the next point here, I'm going to go ahead and recommend we get Impurity. And I recommend we go like full on Impurity because it is an additional 20% uh, benefit for our spells from our attack power, which is honestly like, why would you not? 20%? I mean, that is literally 1/5 more damage, right? So, from there, we're going to go ahead and get the Master of Ghouls. Now, our Raised Ghoul is always, he literally exists for all of time. So, you summon him, and as long as he's not dead, he's there. And I will go into glyphs here in just a second on how you can even make this a little bit better. So, then we're going to go into reaping. Reaping here, this is a massive, massive thing again. I know I keep saying that, but each thing in this has massive potential. And that is that when you hit with Blood Strike or Pestilence, Pestilence being the thing you're going to be spamming a lot with this build because it not only spreads your dots, but with a glyph we're going to get into, it gets a little bit more overpowered. So when you use that, one of your blood runes will become a death rune, guaranteed. Okay, so that is honestly great because death runes can be used for any other thing, right? They can be used for frost abilities, they can be used for blood, they can be used for unholy. So having these stacked up can absolutely make the difference in a any situation, really. I was going to say in a PvE situation, but really in any situation. Now, the last thing you really got to focus on. So you see you have 5 points left currently. I know it says 15, but listen, we don't have all the talent points right now. We're 10 short. I will tell you where I would put them at least. Um Whenever we get there, but right now we have 5 points left. So, where do you go? You go 2 points into Unholy Presence, Improved Unholy Presence. This is so that you can run Blood Presence, which is a 15% increased damage, and you retain 15% movement speed, and your runes finish cooldowns 10% faster in Unholy Presence. Now, you're not going to like what I have to say if you're not exactly good at swapping your presences, but this here is the only improved presence that is unique because the other one increases your attack speed. and this one increases how fast your runes finish. So the way in which it should be used is that you should run Unholy Presence when you're level 70 and just burst things down, okay? Burst, 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 burst. Then swap over to blood for the 15% increased damage, and that way, whenever you're doing that 15% extra damage and you're waiting on runes and you're using your pestilence and your blood strikes to continue to generate death runes, they'll come up a little bit faster and you'll still have some damage backing you up. Next in line, however, is Ghoul Frenzy. This is your big ability for the Ghoul. It is a 25% haste for 30 seconds. It has a 10-second cooldown, and it heals the Ghoul for 60% of its max health over the duration, just because it can. Okay? Just because it can. Now, you have 2 points left, and I'm going to say something that is literally nothing we've talked about here so far. We're going to come over here and go butchery. So, whenever you kill an enemy that grants experience or honor, you generate up to 20 runic power. And in addition, you generate 2 runic power per 5 seconds while in combat. Now, this right here is fantastic because while it's not a whole lot of runic power, it definitely can smooth out transitional periods between pack pools. Um, as well as just generally, I mean, kill an enemy, get a free death coil. You know what I mean? So, really, I think that this is the superior way of building right now when it comes to without gear sets, 10 points below. And if you're willing to run a pet, you're going to see some massive gains out of this. Now, where do you put your points after this? Right? You might be asking, like, okay, Spy, I understand. This is cool. But all right. I'm watching this video way after, Wrath Classic has come out, and I need to know where exactly I should put my points. Well, I'm going to tell you, and that is one, you need to be going into Subversion. Subversion's going to be your big one, okay? It's your critical strike chance of Blood Strike, Scourge Strike, Heart Strike, and Obliterate by 9% and reduces the threat generated while in blood or unholy. Like we said, we're going to be swapping back and forth, but guess what? 25% less threat. I mean, come on, guys. And then from there, we have 7 points left, right? Where I recommend putting it into is bladed armor. And then with your last 2 talent points, go on ahead and put into two-handed specialization. Now, if you're not sure you want to run a two-hander, or you want to really become the master of runes, the better way of doing this, I believe, is to go 4 into bladed armor, okay? Or sorry, 5 into bladed armor, and then going ahead and putting 2 into death rune master. I understand that it's a 66% chance, so you're missing out on a little bit here and there. And if you're really worried about it, you can come over here and take a point out of improved unholy presence. I wouldn't do that, but you can. I think that a 66% chance on your Death Strike or Obliterate that you will create Unholy Rune and Frost Runes is into Death Runes is plenty of chance, but I can fully understand why a lot of people would disagree. And that's why I still recommend running with the 5 in bladed armor and the 2 points for the 4% extra damage on two-handed melee abilities. Now, all right. So we've looked at all this and we understand the build that we have running here. What kind of rotation does this have? Well, you're going to start out by initially putting up your chains of ice, okay? And then, or sorry, not chains of ice, icy touch. From there, you're going to plague strike, which has an increased critical chance. And so you have 2 dots on the target. Now, from there, you are going to use heart strike to generate death runes, okay? And while you're at it, you might as well, depending on if you picked up Death Rune Master or not, go ahead and throw in maybe an Obliterate here and there. But really you want to create death runes, right? So you're going to go Heart Strike, Pestilence. Now, Pestilence is going to get sent out across the group, so everything has your dots. Then you're going to go ahead and one by one, since Unholy Blight does not get transferred by Pestilence, one by one spend your runic power on Unholy Blight. That way that every single target in the pack has AoE damage on top of it. Meanwhile, as all of this is as the combat starts, before it starts, you should have Ghoul Frenzy up constantly. That is 25% more damage from your pet, which will overall just increase your damage. You are a dot spec overall with every bit of this. Armor is going to become something of nice for you. The reason I picked bladed armor is it's 5 extra attack power for every 180 armor value you have. That's fantastic. You're gonna have a lot of armor. You wear plate, so utilize it. Really, genuinely. From here on out, it's really simple. The major glyphs that I would really, really recommend, okay, is firstly of Dark Death. That's just really good. It's a 15% more damage on Death Coil. So really, this right here makes up for us not taking morbidity. We essentially get it for free in the glyphs. Now, next up, I would recommend coming down. Let's see if I can find it. It would be Glyph of Plague Strike. That is a 20% extra damage on Plague Strike. And then from there, I would get Glyph of the Ghoul. This right here will add a 40% extra stamina and strength from you to your ghoul. So your ghoul now actually has 100% of your strength and stamina added on to it. This right here I feel like is the best glyph setup. If you're not sure about any of these, there is definitely a good one that you can pick up if I can just find it. Um let's see. I would say this one's pretty good too. Glyph of Unholy Blight, that increases the damage done. As well as I am having just a moment to find it. Oh, yes, Glyph of Disease. Glyph of Disease is a fantastic one. It is Pestilence now refreshes disease durations on secondary targets affected by diseases and your primary target back to their maximum duration. So, this is really, really good if you want to maximize your runes. Um, Pressing Pestilence will then just essentially take all the timers of your debuffs and go reset. It's really easy to use, and it makes fighting and combat just a lot more fluid, really. Now, for your minor glyphs, really, if you're going to be running the ghoul, you need to get Glyph of Raised Dead, so that it no longer requires corpse dust. Who wants to carry that around, right? I would also go ahead and pick up Horn of Winter. This right here is massive when you really consider how many times you're going to have to press this ability. Okay, Horn of Winter is a 2-minute buff, and it's attack power. And, like, 1 minute, it doesn't sound like a whole lot, but think about how many minutes you're going to be spending pressing that thing anyway. So just, it's big. It's way bigger than it looks. Now, I don't say that. Glyph of Pestilence increases your radiance of pestilence by 5 yards. That is your big one if you're going to be running Glyph of Disease. So, running both of these is absolutely what I would do. So, that is the DPS build that I currently have been using and testing on the live servers. Now, like I said, this is with all talent points put in. If you don't have all talent points because you're not from the future, you're going to go ahead and just stick with getting butchery and leave all of the other blood stuff behind. There's also another way of taking this as well. I'd go ahead. I know I said I'd say extra suggestions, so I will. Firstly, to Desolation, increasing your damage by 5% by just blood striking an enemy. That's fantastic for any DPS to have with that kind of damage. And then Crypt Fever, which is a 30 8% more damage on disease targets. You are a dot build, so this does make sense for you. And then from there, I would go ahead and pick up Bone Shield and Scourge Strike instead of getting Ebon Plague Bringer, which is absolutely good by increasing magic damage done. But I feel like the real crux of all of this really, really does rely upon Scourge Strike, and Bone Shield is so good. So why not go ahead and pick it up? I would like to say that this build has worked very well for me, but I think it's about time that we, well, shift gears a little bit and we talk about my personal favorite of my builds so far, and that would be the blood spec that I have been running. Now, there's a few different ways to run blood, but I personally feel like that the blood unholy mix is the optimal for survivability as well as doing really good damage in PvP. I have been running this build for my PvP Death Knight, and I have absolutely just decimated because you can't kill something that is this crazy. Like it just doesn't die, right? Because you have a lot of health, and what you do is you damage and you get health back, and it just anyway. And the problem is blood spec is not exactly like in live, where in live it is your tank spec. In this version of the game, the older version of the game, blood is a little bit different and it relies really heavily on crit. So you can absolutely maximize your critical damage, okay? So firstly, we're going to go ahead and take butchery, okay? Butchery we've already gone over. It's runic power generation while in combat. We've already gone over subversion, but remember it's a 9% extra crit chance on our obliterate, scourge strikes, stuff like that. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and pick up bladed armor because 5 attack power for every 150 armor we have, we're going to be stacking armor. From there, we're going to get Death Rune Mastery. Okay, this is really only for Death Strike because Obliterate kind of gets canceled out here. But with Death Strike, we're going to get essentially a frost and an unholy rune that get turned into death runes, which we've already gone over what that means. Now, from there on, we really can pick what we want, but I would recommend Scent of Blood if you're trying to be more tanky, is a 15% chance after dodging and parrying to essentially generate more runic power. In PvP, that can be definitely useful, but I feel like Dark Conviction is the next step. Okay? Conviction is a 5% extra crit. That is absolutely massive. Now, from here, I would recommend Spell Deflection. That is a 45% chance, or sorry, a equal to your parry chance of taking 45% less damage from a direct attack. That's massive in PvP, where you can definitely get hit pretty hard by some players, especially when you're still gearing out. So this is just a great way of retaining some of your health. Now, I would recommend getting a Veteran of the Third War. That is a total strength. Remember, this is what we've been talking about, maximizing your strength. Okay, maximizing your actual raw stat. And you also get 3% more extra stamina and an expertise of 6%. From there, we're going to get Bloody Strikes. Now, Bloody Strikes increase the damage of your Blood Strike by 15% and Blood Boil by 30%. Now, it does say Heart Strike by 45%, but we're not going to get that. So, we just make do. From there, we're going to get Bloody Vengeance. That gives us a 3% bonus to physical damage you deal for 30 seconds after dealing a critical strike from a weapon swing, spell, or ability. This stacks up to 3 times, and like I said, it lasts for 30 seconds. Okay, that is 9% extra damage, just constant. Alright, just for playing your class. Just for playing your class and having crit. Just go and get an agility trinket, man. Get an agility trinket and you'll proc that thing. From there, you're going to go ahead and get blood worms, 3 out of 3, and improve blood presence. Bloodworms will make sure that we have a 9% chance from when we hit to spawn bloodworms. They attack your enemies and they heal, and they last for 20 seconds. So they're essentially just some incoming healing. Now, from there, we're going to get sudden doom. All right, sudden doom. The reason for this is it is a or blood strike and heart strike have a 15% chance to launch a free death coil at your target. With improved unholy or improved blood presence, you're gonna have a 10% extra damage done always. So you're gonna run Frost Spec, okay? This is more tanky than anything. So you want to go ahead and run Frost Spec so that you can get this bonus while also being quite tanky. If you're feeling like you're just real sure of yourself, you can absolutely go ahead and run with Unholy for the extra attack power. I find that in PvP situations, I prefer to run Frost for the extra armor, but mix and match and definitely weave. I would recommend weaving your abilities. Now, I did actually forget to mention this as well. We are going to get a Abomination's Might. This is a 10% attack power to the party raid members within 100 meters and increases your total strength by 2%. Attack power gain and 2% more strength sounds easy enough to pick up for me. I don't see any issues with this, and I really just kind of love it. So from there, we're going to go ahead and get Vicious Strikes again, as we've talked about. This is a increase to our critical strike chance, must have. From there, we're going to get Anticipation, 5 points. That increases our dodge chance by 5%. Remember, are equal to our parry chance. Those aren't the same, but why not go ahead and add an extra layer of screwage, to your target? From there, I recommend going ahead and getting Epidemic and then getting Morbidity. Okay, so Epidemic can be passed on here, but Morbidity is going to essentially put Death and Decay up more often and Death Coil in more regularly, which you kind of need something to dump all of that runic power that you're going to be generating into. So, yeah. At this point, though, I'm going to go ahead and say sacrifice the 2 points in Epidemic, all right? Because we only have 11 points left currently in the game. So, we're going to go ahead and get Necrosis, okay? 5 points in Necrosis, that's extra 20% shadow damage. Go ahead and get Outbreak for our Plague Strike, increased damage. The reason is obvious enough because, like I said, Scourge Strike's going to get an extra boost to its critical strike chance, and then it's also going to get a boost to its critical strike damage and crit chance again. So go ahead and take it. From there, I'm going to go ahead and recommend that for the last 2 points, really, you can make a choice. You can make a massive choice here. You can take Epidemic, as we just did a second ago. You can take Unholy Command, which will give us a little bit more leeway with our Death Grip. I personally kind of go down that route. We can also take 20% more speed with On a Pale Horse, but I think this spec does well enough that you can, jump into Unholy Presence for the 15%. Really, play around how you feel about it. You can also go with Night of the Dead if you want. Corpse Explosion is great, but it doesn't really kind of mix matches here, and we only have 13 points, so I'm going to go ahead and say Unholy Command. And then your last point you put in as Unholy Blight. So now, what does the rotation for this build look like? So what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead, place your dots upon the target, and then from there, you're going to just Plague Strike, until you essentially run out of runes with it. From there, you're going to go ahead and just obliterate and cleanse it all if you want, or or heart strike, heart strike. And if you heart strike enough, okay, and you really, really, really believe in yourself, you can absolutely make a mess. Okay, you can make a massive mess of a target. They're not going to have anything they can do against it, really, truly, because you are going to just be slinging your sword around bigger than anyone else's, And every time you do, there's a 15% chance to get a free death coil, which becomes an AoE dot. Like, huh? What? Yeah, it's a little bit crazy. Um, and whenever you do find yourself in a position without any runes, go ahead and just waste all the rest of your cooldown or waste the rest of your, dot timers. I know it sucks, but you're going to really, really get paid for it by 4 runes, okay? 4 runes that are going to turn into death runes. But all you have to do is go obliterate, obliterate, and your problem solved. All right. From there, you're going to go ahead and re up all of your dots over, damage over time. And you know I think this is really where it kind of you need to understand where your runes are depending on the moment. Death knights are a little bit different with the way in which it's handled, so if you're not totally familiar with it, I can understand that maybe this isn't exactly a playstyle for most. This can be a little bit advanced, specifically this build, because it requires you to not only have the option of swapping into multiple presences, but you're also going to have to waste a lot of damage to get obliterates out so that you can recover what you have. Now, you're not going to really regret it when you realize how much damage it's going to do with subversion, but it can kind of sting a little bit. Now, imagine, okay, you are from the future, okay, and you're watching this video. What All right, Spy, what do I do with these last 10 points? Right? I got 10 points left. What do I do? You got a couple options, okay? If you're really wanting to go into some, strengthening your sets, okay, you can go into here, put into toughness, which will increase the armor value by 10% and reduce duration of all movement slowing effects by 30%. That is honestly in PvP a massive, massive thing. For PvE, not as much, but you can definitely see some benefit there. As well as then from there, go ahead and take Black Ice, which will increase your Frost and Shadow damage. This would be your raw stat kind of mentality if you're looking at it that way. If you're thinking a little bit more, I would say flexible, I would go ahead and say take Might of Mograine, increasing the critical strike damage bonus of Blood Boil, Blood Strike, Death Strike, and Heart Strike by 45%. Okay? That is honestly quite sickening. And then grab Heart Strike. Now you got 6 points left. Where you going to put them? I could recommend going into Improved Death Strike. I mean, it's more healing. Okay? In PvP or in PvE, doesn't matter. It's a massive benefit. You can also come back and pick up Unholy Frenzy if you have a teammate that you trust. Okay, I want to make that very emphasized that you trust, because once you put this on them, they're going to be losing health like crazy, but they better be able to pop some damage off. All right. From there, Willow Necropolis is also a pretty good option. That would So any damage that would take you below 35% health or taken while at 35% health is reduced by 15%. That is pretty good overall, just for everyone in your group and for you. But you still have 6 points left, so you can definitely come over here into the unholy spec, and you can actually get to the next row, right? So, where would I put it in the unholy spec? Well, I would go ahead and say impurity. Again, I'm a big impurity fan. I think it does a lot of damage. You can go 4 or you can go 5. Okay, but there's only a 4% difference as your attack power bonus is increased. Okay, now 20% is nice, but 14% allows you to do a little bit more. Okay, or sorry, 16% allows you to do a little bit more, and by a little bit more, I mean it means take desecrated ground, which plague strike, scourge strike have a cause effect on the ground, which slows by 50%. That's the one I plan to be taking this way specifically, and I would recommend this to anyone who is willing to present swap as well as, you know, really kind of push their luck sometimes with the rune system. From there, I would go ahead and say for this here, okay, I would go ahead and say that you should probably be putting into, where is it? Glyph of Heart Strike. This will reduce the movement speed of targets by 50% when you use it because you have Heart Strike now. But we're going to go ahead and say pre-patch is still going on because it is still going on, okay? But that would be Unholy Blight so that you can increase the damage of that. And then from there, you're going to go ahead and take something along the lines of, I would say Glyph of Disease is still really good, okay? But Glyph of Death Grip is really where it's at here, especially for PvP. And instead of Ghoul, you can make the argument that Rune Tap may be useful. Your Rune Tap now heals you for 1% of your maximum health and also heals your party for 10% of their maximum health. That's, I like, yeah, that's pretty good. Glyph of Rune Strike is also really good here. I would also say Glyph of Obliterate is, though, massive in the damage because it's a 25% extra damage on Obliterate. So this is what I would probably run with this. I have yet to have sorted out my glyphs on live for this build specifically, but I would say that these are probably the three, better of the major glyphs. Now for this, I would go ahead and say that for your minor, you're not going to get much options here, but I would say go ahead and just get rid of the one that makes corpse dust. You can carry around a little bit, right? Because you're not going to be running them full time. So go ahead and get the Glyph of Blood Tab, get Horn of Winter, and get Pestilence. That's really, just go ahead and get Pestilence. You can make the argument that, Death Coil refunds 20 runic power when used to heal. That's good. That's real good. But is it that good? I don't know, man. I don't know. So, all right. And if you are in the future, of course, like I said, we're in pre-patch right now. I'm going to go ahead and say that for you, you may have a better chance getting rid of, I wouldn't say getting rid of Obliterate. I would say getting rid of Death Grip and going ahead and getting Heart Strike because that's just massive. 50% slow on Heart Strike. Come on. Come on, guys. Come on. We're trying to burn over here. Burn, baby, burn, right? So, all right. We have one last spec that I wish to show you guys before this video ends out. And this one I really, 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 really like. Okay? But I'm going to go ahead and just preface it and say that this is very tanky, but it's not much on the output. Okay? This is a toughness. We're going to go 5 in toughness. We're going to go 3 in improved icy touch. From there, we're going to go black ice all the way to 5, just because we have to. Okay, we have to. We're going to get Lichborn. This is undead. We become undead. Remember, paladins will screw you up if you do this. But it's immunity to charm, fear, and sleep, which is good. Then we're going to get icy talons. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and get this right here, Chill of the Grave, which increases our runic power generation. Okay. Then from there, we're going to go ahead and get Frigid Death Plate, which will reduce the chance that melee attacks will hit us. Then I would go ahead and say pick up Death Chill. Okay, this is your next Icy Touch, Howling Blast, Frost Strike, or Obliterate is always a crit. Okay, and then you're going to go ahead and get improved Icy Talons again. Now, from here, we're going to go ahead and get Blade Barrier. This is going to reduce our damage by 5% if one of our blood runes is on cooldown. Fantastic. From there, I would go ahead and get Subversion again and Scent of Blood. Scent of Blood we hadn't really talked about, but it is a 15% chance after dodging, parrying, or taking direct damage to gain a scent of blood, causing your next 3 melee hits to generate 10 ultimate, or not ultimate, runic power. Phenomenal. From there, we're going to go ahead and get, well, Death Rune Master and put, I would say, 5 into crit and blood, you know, blood root or blood tap because it's 10%, and then we're going to go ahead and maximize into it so that we can definitely, really get that out of this. Now, from there, we're going to go ahead and mark a blood. This right here, whenever you mark an enemy, it will deal damage to the whenever they deal damage to you, you're going to receive 4% of your maximum health. It lasts for 20 seconds or up to 20 hits. Now, from there, we're going to get Veteran of the Third War and Abomaton's Might. Or Abomination's Might for the party-wide 10% extra buff. And then Bloody Vengeance. And then with the last 3 points, I recommend going ahead and getting improved blood presence and picking up something else, wherever you feel. Now, a better option I think you could use it for is Annihilation to make your Frost Strikes, or no, not your Frost Strike, your Obliterate, not cancel out all your dots. This is not a dot heavy build. Okay, this is just not. But it is an Icy Talons build. So you're going to go boom, Icy Touch. Then you're going to Plague Strike because you might as well. From there, you're going to go ahead and assess the situation. And if you see that you're getting low health or anything like that, don't be afraid to rune tap, as well as put a mark of blood up on the target. The target will then start healing you. This right here between Icy Talons and Might, you will be providing your group with a massive, essentially both of the massive buffs that come out of the Death Knight tree. This is this right here, specifically, this build, I believe, is best suited to someone who is looking for a way to play support more than anything else. You want to be the guy who is always alive, but you also want to provide everything for your group. Say you only have one DK in your group. I know that sounds ridiculous because everyone's going into, everything with 400 DKs right now. But say that you happen to be the only Death Knight in your group. This is a great way of getting both of these buffs for your party, which will absolutely be, well, more integral than you doing damage. So, say you're from the future, okay, and you have 10 points left. All right, where are you going to put them? Well, very, very easy to me. If you ask me, it's simple. It is Bloody Strikes, okay, so we increase the damage of our Blood Strike. We have to do something, okay, we have to do something to increase our damage. Then Unholy Frenzy, because you are, like I said, more support. From there, could say Spell Deflection, I could say Vendetta, but I think really the biggest thing here is improved Death Strikes, just to increase your healing done, and then get Blood Worms, and you have 1 point left, so you might as well get Heart Strike for the AoE damage. So, that is the spec that you would be running for this. It is a Blood Frost spec. Uh, Go ahead and get rid of that here, you know, and we're going to go ahead and talk about the glyphs. So, I think that Glyph of Chains of Ice actually makes sense here because you're not going to be doing a lot of damage, so you might as well use your utility to your advantage and do a little bit. Okay? Just go ahead and just do a little bit. I think it makes sense here. Now, if you're not like me and, maybe you're like, okay, come on, Spy. You could definitely get Death Grip. You could definitely get Death Strike, which increases your Death Strike's damage by 1% for every 1 runic power you have, up to 25%. That is really massive. Okay. For the Obliterate, I would go ahead and just go, get rid of it and get Rune Tap instead, so that Rune Tap now heals you for an additional 1% of your maximum health and heals a party member as well. That's just big for you and everyone. So go ahead. When it comes down to here, I would say get rid of Pestilence and probably just go ahead and get Death's Embrace. You're a support, so you might as well. This is what I recommend for people who are currently struggling with how to build a DK. I understand we're missing 10 points. I understand that we are kind of in between damage because, well, we don't have many sets. But look, guys, if you just focus down a certain playstyle, you can absolutely maximize your potential. You can maximize where your raw stats are coming from, and you can produce some pretty good numbers. So don't be afraid to jump into DK right now during the pre-patch. This is a great time for anyone who plans to play a Death Knight to be playing a Death Knight. You need to be able to, learn your skills, learn your abilities, get geared up. Why not? As well as get some undead slaying runes because you're going to need them come Wrath of the Lich King and the event ends the day of launch. So, once again, this has been SpyPie Gaming TV, and I will see you all in the next video, and thank you all for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below, and as well as check out other content on the channel. World of Warcraft is making a massive amount of changes and comebacks here in the recent kind of year. We've seen Dragonflight, it looks okay. But really, Wrath the Lich King is what I plan to be focusing on here on the channel. So if you want to see Wrath the Lich King content right now, I am planning to cover as much of it as possible going into the expansion. So come back over here and check it out once the expansion launches, as well as, you know, we also have some shorts that we're going to produce for the channel on Wrath the Lich King, as well as content will be coming for Wrath the Lich King on this channel. So, once again, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.